My ex sold the house behind my back, and I didn't find out from him. I found out because a stranger mailed me a welcome home flyer with my address printed under someone else's name. It arrived on a Tuesday, wedged between grocery coupons and a glossy postcard from a local roofing company. Bright paper, smiling couple on the front, that painfully cheerful font people use when they want you to feel excited about spending money. Welcome to your new home, it said, and underneath, in bold black letters, was the address I'd lived at for 9 years, Brookstone Lane. My hands went cold so fast I thought I'd drop the mail into snow. I stood at my kitchen counter, still in my work blouse, my purse strap sliding off my shoulder, and I stared at that flyer like it might blink and correct itself. But it didn't. Because paper doesn't care who it hurts. It just tells the truth after someone signs it. My name is Natalie Rowe. I'm 38. I work as a compliance analyst for a regional healthcare network outside Charlotte, North Carolina. Not the kind of job that makes people lean in at parties, but the kind that makes you notice patterns and paperwork and the quiet ways people try to slip something past you. And I can tell you this, with a clarity that still makes my stomach twist, betrayal doesn't always arrive with shouting. Sometimes it arrives with a flyer and a stamp and a stranger's smile. The house on Brookstone Lane wasn't a mansion. It wasn't a showpiece. It was a 2-story brick home with white trim, a creaky porch step, and a maple tree that turned bright red every fall, like it was trying to make up for everything else life got wrong. I loved that tree. I planted it with my father the week after I closed. Back then, I was 29 and scared of everything, of mortgages, of loneliness, of being the kind of woman who did things without a man beside her. I was newly promoted, newly independent, and I wanted something solid that no one could take away. My father drove down in his old pickup truck with a shovel in the bed and a cooler full of iced tea. We dug until our hands blistered. He set that sapling into the ground, patted the soil with the gentleness he never showed to anything else, and said, "This is yours. Roots matter, Nat." I believed him. I believed the world honored roots. And then I met Evan. Evan Whitaker had the kind of smile that made people feel chosen. He worked in finance, which meant he wore suits even when we went out for tacos, and he talked about long-term strategy. Like every conversation was a board meeting. He was charming, careful, polished. And when he looked at my house, my little brick home with the creaky porch step, he looked at me like I was brilliant. "You did this by yourself?" he asked, walking through my living room as if he was imagining his life already hanging on my walls. When I nodded, he took my hand and said, "That's rare. I love that about you." It felt like admiration, now I know. It was an appraisal. We dated for a year. He moved in slowly. A toothbrush became a drawer became a closet became his golf clubs in my entryway, like they had always belonged there. And then one night, after dinner, he pulled out a small velvet box and proposed at my kitchen table, right under the pendant light I'd installed myself. I cried, because I thought love was the thing that made a home complete. I didn't realize a home could be the thing someone married you to reach. The first time Evan asked me to add him to the deed, it didn't sound like a demand. It sounded like a compliment disguised as logic. "We're a team," he said, leaning back in his chair like he was giving me a gift. "It's weird for a married couple to have the house only in one name. What if something happens to you? It would be a mess." I remember blinking. Nothing's going to happen to me. He smiled like I was adorable. That's not the point. It's just responsible. Responsible. That was Evan's favorite word. If I questioned him, I wasn't being responsible. If I hesitated, I was being emotional. If I wanted proof, I was being difficult. I didn't add him to the deed. Not then. Instead, I offered a compromise. A will, beneficiaries, paperwork that protected him if I died without giving him ownership while I lived. He accepted it with a little shrug, but I saw something flicker behind his eyes. Not anger, calculation. The cracks in our marriage didn't start with fighting. They started with silence, with small disappearances. Evan working later, coming home smelling like cologne that wasn't his usual. Evan taking phone calls in the garage with the door shut. Evan joining networking dinners that always seemed to happen on nights when I was too tired to follow him. And then, one Sunday morning, he said it casually, like he was asking me to pick up milk. "I think we should refinance," he said, flipping through his phone. "Rates are good. We can pull out some equity, invest it, make the money work for us." I laughed because I thought he was joking. "What equity?" I asked. "I've been paying this mortgage since before you met me." He looked up, slow and calm. "And now we're married. It's our asset." Our asset. He said it like ownership was contagious. I told him no. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't slam his hand on the table. He just nodded and waited, like a man watching a clock. The divorce came a year later. Not because I wanted it, because Evan told me he did. Right after I asked him why he'd opened a new credit card in my name. He stood in my kitchen, the same kitchen where he'd proposed, and he said, "I can't live like this, Natalie. You don't trust me." I stared at him. "You used my social security number." He spread his hands like I was missing the point. It was for us, for our future. I felt something inside me snap. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet and final. I filed first, and Evan's face that day, I'll never forget it. Not heartbreak, not grief, just irritation, like I'd rearranged his plan. The divorce process was long enough to make me tired of my own voice. Mediation, paperwork, lawyers who spoke like everything was a chess move. Evan wanted his share of the house. I reminded everyone, repeatedly, that the house had been purchased before marriage, solely in my name, with my down payment, my mortgage history, my records. Evan's lawyer smiled and said things like, "Marriage changes things." My lawyer, an older woman named Teresa Caldwell, with steel gray hair and eyes that missed nothing, looked at me across her desk and said, "He's going to try. That doesn't mean he gets it." I clung to that sentence like it was a rope. In the end, the settlement was clear. The house stayed mine. No equity payout, no forced sale. The judge signed off. Evan walked out of the courthouse with that same practiced smile he used when he wanted people to think he'd won. And for 2 weeks after, he was oddly quiet. No angry texts, no demands, no threats, just silence. That's what scared me, because Evan never accepted losing. He just changed tactics. On the 3rd week, I came home from work and found my mailbox jammed with envelopes. Not bills, not letters, documents. Thick, official-looking packets with county seals and bold headings. My chest tightened before I even opened them. I carried them inside, dropped my keys on the counter, and spread everything out on the table like I was about to perform surgery. The first one was addressed to Evan, but it had my address. The second was a notice of change from a utility company. The third was something that made my brain stall. Closing disclosure. I stared at that phrase until my eyes watered. closing disclosure. Closing, like selling. Like, my hand shook when I tore open the packet. And there it was. A sale price. A buyer. A date scheduled for closing. My house. My address. And Evan's name printed under seller. I made a sound that wasn't a word. It was the noise your body makes when it realizes it's about to fall. And there's nothing to grab. I called Evan immediately. He didn't answer. I called again. Voicemail. His greeting was the same one he'd had for years. Cheerful. Calm. "Hey, it's Evan. Leave a message." Leave a message. As if this was normal. As if my life wasn't being sold out from under me. I called Teresa. When she picked up, I didn't even say hello. "He sold my house," I said. There was a pause, short, sharp, and then her voice went low. "Tell me exactly what you have in front of you." I read the words. I read the numbers. I read Evan's name under seller until it felt like I was reading a crime scene report. Teresa didn't gasp. She didn't panic. She said, "Okay, breathe. We're going to handle this." Then, "Natalie, are you sure you never signed anything after the divorce? Any power of attorney? Any authorization?" "No," I said. "No, nothing." "Good," she replied. "Then you didn't sell your house." I blinked. "But it says what someone wanted it to say," she cut in. "And we're going to find out how." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, county records portal pulled up, refreshing the page like a crazy person. My address, my parcel number, my deed history. At first, everything looked normal. Natalie Rowe, sole owner, recorded 2017. But then I scrolled, and my eyes caught a document recorded 2 days ago. Quitclaim deed. My stomach flipped. I clicked it, and the PDF opened slowly, like the internet itself was trying to give me a moment to prepare. There it was. A signature. My signature. Except it wasn't mine. It was my name written in a loopier hand, too round, too practiced, like someone copying from a license. And underneath it, a notary stamp. Notary stamp. County. Date. Commission number. Evan's name listed as grantee. He had filed a document that transferred ownership from me to him 2 days ago, after the divorce, after the judge, after everything. I stared at the screen until my vision blurred. My throat tightened so hard I couldn't swallow. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't he said, she said. This was fraud, dressed up as paperwork. I printed everything, every page, every file number, every stamp. At 2 a.m, my printer ran out of ink, and I laughed. This short, broken laugh. Because of course it did. Of course the universe would make me fight for ink while my house was being stolen. The next morning, Teresa met me at her office. She took one look at the quitclaim deed, and her jaw tightened. "That's not your signature," she said. "No," I whispered. It's mine, but wrong." Teresa nodded, like she'd seen this before. "Forgery." She tapped the notary stamp with her pen. "And this is the key." "What does a notary have to do with it?" I asked, my voice thin. Teresa leaned in. "A notary is supposed to verify identity. If they stamp this without you present, they either got fooled or they're in on it." My skin prickled. Evan couldn't have done this alone. Notary, closing documents, buyer. A whole chain of people had to touch this for it to move forward, which meant a whole chain of people had a chance to stop it, and didn't. Teresa made calls while I sat in her office, holding a paper cup of coffee I couldn't drink. She called the county recorder. She called the title company, listed on the disclosure. She called the real estate attorney, handling closing. And with every call, her voice stayed calm, professional, controlled, but I saw the tension in her shoulders. At one point, she covered the phone and looked at me. "They're saying the seller, Evan, provided documentation proving he owned it," she said quietly. "They have a deed on record. They're proceeding like it's legitimate." My mouth went dry. "So what happens if they close?" Teresa's eyes sharpened. "We stop it before it closes." "How?" I asked. She slid a legal pad toward herself and began writing like she was building a weapon. "Emergency injunction," she said. "List pendants. Police report. Notary complaint. We create a paper trail so loud they can't ignore it." Paper trail. That was the only language this situation respected. Teresa looked up. "Natalie, I need you to do something right now." "What?" "Go to the bank. Freeze any accounts you share with Evan. Change passwords. Pull credit reports. If he's willing to forge a deed, he's willing to do more." My hands trembled in my lap. I nodded anyway, because fear doesn't protect you. Action does. The bank visit felt like walking through a dream. Fluorescent lights, calm music, a teller with glossy nails asking, "How can I help you today?" like I wasn't in the middle of a robbery. I sat with a manager and explained, in clipped, controlled sentences, that my ex-husband was committing fraud. The manager's eyebrows climbed. "Do you have documentation?" Of course he asked that. Even here, even now, paper. I slid my printed pages across the desk. His face changed as he read the words "quitclaim deed" and saw Evan's name. He nodded slowly. "We can separate your accounts. We can add extra security. We can flag unusual activity." Flag. Like my life was a suspicious transaction. I drove straight from the bank to the police station. I didn't want to. I wasn't the kind of person who enjoyed making a report. But Teresa had been clear. The system moves when you force it to. The station lobby smelled like old coffee and disinfectant. A TV played a news loop no one watched. A man behind glass slid forms through a slot, without looking at me. When an officer finally sat with me, he listened. And then he sighed. "Ma'am," he said, "this sounds like a civil matter." My stomach clenched. Teresa had warned me about this, the way theft becomes civil when it wears a suit. "It's forgery," I said, keeping my voice steady. "It's identity fraud. There's a false notarization." The officer glanced at the documents. His posture shifted slightly, as if his brain finally recognized a criminal shape. He asked, "Do you know the notary?" "No," I replied, "but I can give you their commission number." That got his attention. He took the papers, made copies, and typed slowly like each key press cost him energy. When I left, I had a report number in my hand. A small thing. But it was proof the world had heard me. By that afternoon, Teresa filed an emergency motion. She recorded a LAS pendants against my property, a public notice that the title was under dispute. She sent demand letters to the title company and the buyer's agent. And then she did something that surprised me. She told me to go sit in my car and wait, right outside the title company's office. "Why?" I asked. "Because people behave differently when the victim shows up," she said. So I did. I parked across the street from a glass-fronted building with a polished sign that read, "Oak Ridge Title Services," like it was a spa. I watched people come and go with neat folders and coffee cups. I watched a couple walk in holding hands, laughing, probably buying their first home, probably excited. And I felt a strange, sharp ache, because that was supposed to be joy. not fear. An hour later, my phone rang. Teresa. "They've paused closing," she said. My shoulders sagged so hard I almost cried. "Paused," I echoed. "Temporarily," Teresa warned. "They want answers. They're investigating the deed." I swallowed. "And Evan?" Teresa exhaled. "He called them. He's claiming you signed it willingly. He's saying you're trying to sabotage because you're bitter. Of course. He was painting me as emotional, because if he could make me look unstable, he could make himself look credible." Teresa continued. "We're going to force this into the light." "How?" I asked. Her tone sharpened. "By dragging the notary into daylight." That night, I sat at my dining table with a notary commission lookup page open on my laptop. Teresa had given me the commission number from the stamp. North Carolina Secretary of State database. Search. Enter number. Click. And up popped a name. Lydia Hensley. Commission active. Address in a town 20 minutes away. I stared at her name, then at her signature on the stamp. I felt my skin crawl. A real person had stamped my life away. Teresa told me not to contact Lydia directly. "That's my job," she said. "But you can do something else." "What?" "Find out if Evan has any connection to her. Social media, mutual friends, anything." So I did. I opened Evan's Facebook, even though I hadn't looked at it in months. His profile photo was of him in a suit, smiling at some corporate event like he was a man who didn't forge deeds. I searched his friends list. I searched Lydia. There she was, a woman in her 40s, blonde, professional headshot, captioned with some motivational quote about integrity. Integrity. I felt a laugh rise again, bitter, sharp, and I clicked her profile. Public posts, not many. But then I saw it. A photo from last year, a small group at a charity golf tournament, men in polos, women smiling, and Evan standing 2 people behind her, holding a drink, arm around someone's shoulder. My heart thudded. Connection. Not random. Not a stranger. Someone in Evan's orbit. I screenshot it and sent it to Teresa. 3 dots appeared immediately as she typed. Then her reply came. Good. Very good. This is going to matter. The next day, Teresa filed a complaint with the Secretary of State's Notary Division. She attached the forged deed, the police report number, the screenshot of Lydia with Evan, and then she scheduled something that made my blood pressure spike. A deposition. Not of Evan, not yet. Of Lydia. When Teresa told me, I sat down hard on my couch. Is she going to tell the truth? I asked. Teresa's voice was steady. People tell the truth when the lie becomes expensive. The week leading up to the deposition felt like living inside a held breath. My phone buzzed constantly. Unknown numbers. Voicemails from Evan, finally. The first one was calm. Nat, I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're making this messy. Call me. The second was sharper. You're embarrassing yourself. You signed those papers. Don't pretend you didn't. The third was the one that made my stomach turn. You want to play hardball? Fine. I can play too. You'll lose. Lose. That word. Evan always treated life like a competition, but this wasn't a game. This was my home, my father's tree, my safety. I didn't call him back, not once. Because Teresa had been clear, speak through lawyers, let the system record everything. And then, on Thursday morning, the buyer showed up at my door. I was standing in my kitchen when the doorbell camera chimed. Motion detected. I glanced at the screen and saw a woman I'd never seen before, holding a folder in one hand. She looked nervous, not aggressive, not smug, just uncertain. I opened the door cautiously. Hi, she said. Are you Natalie? Yes, I replied, my voice careful. She swallowed. I'm Jenna. We're supposed to be buying this house. The world tilted. Not because I didn't know there was a buyer, because suddenly the buyer had a face, a human being. She held up the folder. Our agent said there's a title issue, but we've already given notice on our apartment. We already paid the earnest money. We're just trying to understand what's going on. Her voice cracked on the last word. I stared at her and felt something complicated. Anger, at Evan, fear, for myself, and a strange pity. Because Evan didn't just hurt me. He dragged strangers into the blast. I took a slow breath. Jenna, I said softly, I need you to know something. I never agreed to sell this house. My signature was forged. Her eyes widened. What? I'm fighting it, I continued. My lawyer is involved. The police are involved. This shouldn't be happening to you. She looked down at her folder like it might explode. Oh my God, she whispered. And then quietly, she asked, Is Evan your husband? Ex, I corrected. She nodded slowly, as if that explained everything. She hesitated, then said, He seemed so confident. He said his ex-wife was being dramatic. Of course he painted me that way. I kept my face calm, but inside I felt heat rise. I'm not being dramatic, I said. I'm being robbed. Jenna swallowed. We don't want to take someone's home. I believed her. I believed she didn't know. And that, oddly, made it easier to keep fighting. Before she left, Jenna said something that stuck with me. Our lender is freaking out, she admitted. They said if this is fraud, they have to report it. Report it. More paper, more consequences. Good. Because Evan had been playing in shadows, and shadows disappear when enough people shine lights. The deposition happened the next Monday. Teresa didn't want me to attend, but I insisted. Not because I enjoyed legal rooms, because I wanted Lydia to see my face, to see that I wasn't an abstract name on a form. I was a person. The conference room was bland, beige walls, cheap art, a long table with a pitcher of water. Lydia Hensley sat at the far end in a navy blazer, hair perfectly styled, hands folded like a church lady. She looked composed. Too composed. Evan wasn't there. Of course he wasn't. He always let other people take the heat. The court reporter swore Lydia in. Teresa began. Ms. Hensley, she said, voice calm. Do you recognize this document? She slid the forged deed across the table. Lydia glanced at it and nodded. Yes. And is that your notary stamp? Teresa asked. Yes. Do you recall notarizing this signature? Teresa continued. Lydia's eyes flicked up. Yes. My heart hammered. Teresa leaned forward slightly. Please describe the circumstances. Who presented the document to you? Lydia's lips parted, then closed. She swallowed. A man, she said. A man presented it. Teresa's pen tapped once. What man? Lydia hesitated. The court reporter's fingers hovered over keys. The room held still. Finally, Lydia said, Evan Whitaker. There it was. His name, spoken aloud, under oath, in a room where lies had consequences. Teresa nodded. Was Natalie Rowe present? Lydia's face tightened. No. My breath caught. Teresa's voice stayed steady. Did you verify Natalie Rowe's identity? Lydia's shoulders shifted. Evan told me she couldn't come because she was working. He brought a copy of her ID. Teresa's eyes narrowed. A copy? Lydia nodded quickly. Yes. And he said she signed it at home. He just needed it stamped. Teresa's voice turned sharper, like a blade drawn slow. Ms. Hensley, she said, you understand that notarizing a signature requires the signer to appear before you in person, correct? Lydia's cheeks flushed. Yes. And you didn't require that, Teresa pressed. Lydia's hands trembled slightly. He said it was urgent. He said it was for a closing. He said he couldn't lose the buyer. Teresa let that hang in the air. Then she asked the question that made Lydia's composure crack. Did Evan compensate you for notarizing without Natalie present? Lydia's eyes darted to the side, then down. Then she whispered, He gave me $200. $200. My entire life, my home, my father's tree, reduced to $200 and a stamp. My vision blurred with rage. Teresa's voice softened slightly, not with sympathy for Lydia, but with the certainty of victory. Ms. Hensley, she said, did you know this deed transferred ownership of Natalie Rowe's house to Evan Whitaker? Lydia shook her head quickly. No, I didn't read it. I stamped. Teresa nodded. So you stamped a legal instrument without reading it, without verifying the signer, and you accepted money. Lydia's eyes filled with tears. I made a mistake. Teresa's gaze didn't flinch. Mistake, she repeated. Or misconduct? Lydia began crying then, quietly, carefully, like she wanted to keep control even of her shame. I sat there, hands clenched under the table, and I realized something. This wasn't just Evan being evil. This was a system, full of small, weak links. People who broke rules because they didn't think it mattered, until it did. After the deposition, Teresa stepped into the hallway with me. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something fierce. We have her on record, she said. He bribed her. She violated notarization law. The deed is voidable. I swallowed. So, my house is safe? Teresa lifted one shoulder. We're closer, but Evan won't stop yet. And she was right. 2 days later, Evan filed a counterclaim. He claimed I was harassing him. He claimed I was interfering with contractual relations. He claimed I had verbally agreed to sell the house to satisfy marital debts. Marital debts. That phrase made me laugh when Teresa read it aloud, because Evan was trying to turn his fraud into a noble sacrifice. Teresa shook her head. He's throwing mud. He wants to intimidate you into backing down. I stared at her. Will it work? Teresa looked at me. Not if you stay steady. Stay steady. That became my mantra. Steady when Evan texted from new numbers. Steady when a process server showed up at my office and everyone pretended not to watch. Steady when my mother called and asked, voice trembling, Natalie, are you sure you're okay? Steady when I walked through my living room and wondered if I should pack a suitcase, just in case. Because the fear wasn't rational anymore. It was physical. It lived in my muscles. It made me lock the door twice. It made me check the porch light at night, like it was proof I still owned the world. One evening, a week before the court hearing, I came home and found Evan sitting in his car across the street. Just sitting, watching. My hands went cold around my steering wheel. I didn't get out right away. I sat in my driveway and stared back. He didn't wave. He didn't approach. He just watched, like a predator waiting for prey to tire. I took my phone and recorded him. Then I walked inside, locked the door, and called Teresa. Her response was immediate. Good, she said. Document everything. He's trying to scare you. Don't let him. The hearing was set for a Friday morning. Emergency injunction. Motion to declare the deed fraudulent. Request to quiet title. Big words that meant one thing. Stop him. Protect the house. When I walked into the courthouse, the air smelled like old stone and bureaucracy. Teresa wore a dark suit and carried a folder thick enough to look like a weapon. Evan stood across the hallway in a tailored gray suit, smiling like we were here for brunch. He looked at me and said softly, "You didn't have to make it ugly." I stared at him and felt something settle inside me, a calm, hard clarity. "I didn't," I said quietly. "You did." His smile tightened. We entered the courtroom. The judge, Honorable Marissa Kendrick, was a woman with sharp eyes and a voice that didn't waste time. Teresa presented the evidence: the forged signature, the notary deposition, the police report, the LE pendants. She spoke with the controlled precision of someone who knew the facts would do the talking. Evan's attorney tried to argue consent, tried to argue misunderstanding, tried to paint Evan as a man trying to resolve debts. Judge Kendrick's eyes narrowed. She asked, "Mr. Whitaker, did you sign any agreement giving you authority to transfer this property?" Evan's attorney began to answer, but the judge held up a hand. "I asked Mr. Whitaker." Evan stood. He smiled slightly, as if charm could bend law. "Your Honor," he began, "Natalie and I had discussions." Judge Kendrick cut him off. "Did you have power of attorney?" Evan's jaw tightened. "No," he admitted. The judge leaned back. "Did you bring Ms. Rowe before a notary to sign this deed?" Evan hesitated. His attorney shifted. Evan's voice lowered. "No." Judge Kendrick's expression went still in a way that felt like a door closing. "Then you knowingly participated in an improper notarization," she said, voice cold. Evan opened his mouth. She continued, "This court will not reward fraud with property." My breath caught. Judge Kendrick looked down at her papers, then said the words I'd been desperate to hear. "I grant the emergency injunction. Closing is halted. The deed is suspended pending full investigation. A criminal referral will be made regarding notarization misconduct and potential forgery." Suspended. Halted. Criminal referral. For the first time in weeks, my lungs filled properly. Evan's face changed. Not anger, not sadness, shock, like he hadn't believed consequences were real. Outside the courtroom, Evan's attorney pulled him aside, speaking quickly. Evan's eyes cut toward me once, sharp and resentful. Teresa leaned close to me. "Don't react," she murmured. "Let him sit in it." And I did. Because the greatest power reversal isn't screaming, it's silence, when the other person expects you to break. But Evan wasn't done. He never was. 2 days later, Sunday afternoon, my phone buzzed with an alert from my security camera. Motion detected. My stomach dropped. I opened the app. Evan was on my porch, not alone, with a man in a polo shirt holding a clipboard. And behind them, a white box truck, a moving truck. I felt my heart slam against my ribs. Not again. I grabbed my keys, my phone, and ran outside. I didn't even think. I just moved. By the time I reached the front door, Evan had stepped back like a man posing for a photo. The clipboard man knocked. I opened the door just enough to keep the chain on. "What is this?" I demanded. Evan smiled, slow and smug. "Just a little follow-up, Nat." The clipboard man cleared his throat. "Ma'am, we're here to execute a property turnover. We have paperwork." I laughed sharp. "No, you don't." His eyebrows lifted. "Excuse me?" I held up my phone, showing the court order Teresa had emailed me, saved and starred. "Injunction," I said. "Judge Kendrick. Friday. Closing halted. Deed suspended." Evan's smile twitched. The clipboard man blinked, reading. His face changed as comprehension hit. "Sir," he said to Evan, "this says the sale is stopped." Evan's voice tightened. It's temporary. She's being dramatic. Dramatic. There it was again. I kept my tone steady. If you step on my property with that truck, I'm calling the police. If you attempt entry, it's trespassing. And if you keep using fake paperwork, it's more evidence. Evan's eyes narrowed. The clipboard man shifted uncomfortably. I'm not doing this, he muttered. I'm not losing my license over a mess. He backed away toward the truck. Evan snapped, Are you kidding me? But the man was already walking. And for the first time, I saw something in Evan's posture, uncertainty, because his usual trick, throwing authority at people until they obeyed, had failed. Evan stepped closer to the door, voice low. You think you won, he said. I stared at him through the crack, chain still on. No, I replied. I think you got caught. His jaw flexed. Then in a softer voice, he said, You could make this easier if you just let it go. Let it go. Like my home was a grudge. Like my safety was negotiable. I felt something rise inside me. Not rage, not fear, something colder. I'm not letting it go, I said. I'm letting you face consequences. Then I closed the door, not slowly, not dramatically, just closed it. And behind it, my hands trembled, but I didn't open it again. That night I sat on my couch with my laptop open and my father's old shovel leaning against the wall in the corner of my living room. The shovel I kept because it reminded me of roots. I looked at the maple tree outside my window, its branches bare in winter, and I realized Evan didn't understand roots. He understood leverage, but leverage breaks when the ground refuses to move. The next weeks were a blur of legal steps. The county recorder flagged the fraudulent deed. The Secretary of State opened an investigation into Lydia's commission. The title company filed their own fraud report to protect themselves. And Jenna, the buyer, sent me a message through Teresa. It was short. I'm sorry. We didn't know. Thank you for telling us the truth. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't forgive her, because my energy was for survival. And then, the criminal case moved faster than I expected. One Friday afternoon, Teresa called me. Her voice held a quiet satisfaction. Evan's being charged, she said. My breath caught. Charged with what? Forgery-related offenses, she replied. And Lydia's commission is being suspended. She's cooperating. Cooperating. That meant Evan wasn't just losing a house. He was losing his shield, his ability to pretend he was respectable. Because nothing destroys a polished man faster than official records. The final civil hearing happened months later. By then, my fear had hardened into resolve. The judge ruled the deed null and void. Title restored fully in my name, with clear record correction. Evan ordered to pay attorney fees and damages, and the court issued a permanent injunction preventing him from filing further property documents without court permission. When Judge Kendrick read the decision, Evan sat rigid, eyes forward, expression tight. He didn't look at me. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. And that silence was the truest apology I was ever going to get. After court, Teresa walked with me down the courthouse steps. The sky was bright, clean, almost too cheerful. She handed me the final stamped order. Keep copies, she said. Digital and paper. I nodded. Then she looked at me for a long moment. Natalie, she said, softer. You did everything right. You didn't freeze. You didn't let him isolate you. You got loud with paperwork. You fought in the language the system understands. I swallowed hard, because for months, I'd felt like a person screaming underwater. And now, I finally felt air. When I got home, I walked through my house slowly. The living room where Evan once paced, planning, the kitchen table where he proposed, where he later accused me of not trusting him, where I'd sat up at 2 a.m., printing evidence. I touched the wall by the staircase, the spot where my father's handprint had smudged paint when he helped me move in. I went outside and stood under the maple tree. Its branches rustled softly. Roots matter, my father had said. And now, I understood the deeper truth. Roots aren't just about ownership. They're about identity. They're about knowing what's yours and refusing to be moved. Evan tried to sell my home behind my back. He tried to turn the paper into a weapon. He tried to make me look emotional, unstable, dramatic, because that's how men like him win. But this time, he picked the wrong woman, because my job trained me to notice details, to respect documentation, to understand consequences. And when Evan tried to steal my life with a forged signature, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I built a paper trail so strong it became a cage. Now, the flyer that started it all sits in a folder in my home office. Not because I enjoy remembering, but because I want proof. Proof that even when someone tries to rewrite your life, the truth can still be recorded. And every fall, when that maple tree turns bright red, I stand on my porch and watch it. Not as a reminder of what Evan did, but as a reminder of what I did. I stayed. I fought. I held my ground. And I learned the lesson that changed everything. If someone tries to take your home in silence, answer with evidence. Answer with action. Answer with a voice that doesn't shake when it matters most. Because the moment you stop trying to be nice to someone who's hurting you is the moment you start becoming dangerous in the best way. And that's how you keep what's yours, not by hoping people are good, but by being ready when they're not.